I really, really love the trend. It's been a trend for a while now, but it's still a trend of the Tila stacking bracelets. And so I thought it was high time that I created a video showing you guys how to make these Tila stacking bracelets also. I have come up with two different ways to create your bracelets. I have a third one in my head. I still need to work out the details on that one. So just know that there may be yet a third video coming on making these stacking bracelets. But the most common way that you see these bracelets made is using stretchy cord. And I have watched a lot of videos, people from all over the world showing how to make these bracelets, and there's a lot of bad information out there, y'all. So that's another reason why I felt very strongly about making this video, even though it's kind of a dated project and that there's already a lot of videos out there, is I wanted to try to keep you guys from going down the wrong path with your bracelets. If you're using these stretchy cord, there's a couple of things to know. One is I've seen quite a few videos where they tell you to crimp the stretchy cord. No, do not crimp stretchy cord. Crimps are metal, they have sharp edges, and that crimp is just going to cut right through that stretchy cord. The stretchy cord is soft, and it can be easily cut by the metal edge of a crimp. So do not crimp, don't use crimps. Another thing I see a lot of people tell you to do is using a crimp cover to cover the knot that you have made, tying the ends of your stretchy cord together. I'm not a big fan of this one either. Same reason. A crimp cover has a metal edge on it. It is not going to cut your stretchy cord as fast as a crimp would, but a crimp cover still, over time, that metal is going to wear away on that stretchy cord and you're going to experience failure as a result. So I decided I needed to do a video to show you a much more proper way to do this. Give your stretchy bracelets the best staying power. Now I will say this, stretchy cord, no matter which one you use, is a fallible product. It is not going to last forever. You're going to get a couple of years out of a stretch bracelet. And that's whether you're using Tila beads, glass beads, whatever. A couple years is pretty much as long as it's going to last, because what's going to happen over time is the stretch is going to come out of the cord and it'll basically you'll start seeing cord showing, a lot of cord showing. The other thing that will happen is it's going to break at some point. It's going to get, whether it's, you just pulled it a little bit too often or it gets caught on something. These are not forever heirloom pieces that you're making. You're making fun, couple of summer season kind of bracelets when you're making stretchy cord bracelets. So just remember that we're going to give you tips to make it last as long as we can, but it's not going to last forever, okay? Let me bring you down to my bead board and I want to show you some details here about what kind of materials we're going to use. Now, one of the things that I love about these bracelets is the Tilas come in the full size, in the quarter size, and then this right here, well actually here in this one, this is a good visual, full size, half size, and then these little slices are quarter size Tilas. So because you've got multiple sizes and then all the color range, you can make all sorts of patterns in these. And I think it is an absolute blast to put these patterns together. It's very architectural kind of looking, and I enjoy it a lot. I still think this one is my favorite of all the ones that I've made. So I have a video on how to create your Tila stacker using bead weaving techniques. So in this case, I used a thread. I will pop a link up to that video, and it will tell you how to do this using needle and thread and what materials you're going to use specifically for it and what not to use. So that's option one. And then option two, of course, is the stretchy cord, like so. So let me get this kind of out of the way here. Now, materials that you're going to use, you're going to want, I usually use at least 3 different beads in these bracelets. In this case, I've got 2 different kinds of the full Tilas and then quarter Tilas in between. So I like to do at least 3 different colors and at least 2 different sizes. But again, it's up to you. I mean, you could make one with all full Tilas if you wanted. I've actually made one, and I have it right here, where I used 100% quarter Tilas because I really kind of liked that very fine slice look to it. So your imagination can go wild with your patterns, and that's one of the things that's so fun with this. You, of course, can pick your own colors and your own sizes, and we carry all of the colors in all the sizes. So we've got like over 100 colors of the full. Basically, if they make it, we carry it. So we've got all the full color selection on our website. Now here, oh wait, let me finish materials. Focus, Jill. So let's talk about stretchy cord. For this type of knot that I'm going to show you, I like to use a the smallest diameter cord that I can. This technique that I'm going to show you in this video is using what's called, well, it's called various things. I've seen people call it a tricky Ricky knot. Some people call it an invisible knot, that kind of thing. You need to have a pretty fine cord to do it, and it has to be able to be doubled through the beads. So for this technique, I like to use the Miyuki Elastic Beading Cord. This cord is kind of a flattened cord, which makes it pass through the beads very easily. It's not super expensive. You get 22 yards or 20 meters in one spool, so you get a lot of mileage out of a single spool. And it gives you a range on diameter, 0.3 to 0.5 millimeters. So I'm always looking at kind of that biggest millimeter size. So if the max it is going to be is 5 millimeters, then we're good. So this works really well for this technique that I'm going to show you. Now, if you're going to do this bracelet and just tie regular knots where the ends come together, that's fine also. Then you can use the Stretch Magic 0.5 millimeter. And you're like, hey, so if they're both 0.5 millimeter, why can't I use the Stretch Magic for this invisible knot that you're going to tie? Well, you can, but it's going to be a little more difficult to get the beads, to get the cord through the beads. And the reason is the Stretch Magic cord is got a very rounded profile. It doesn't flatten down at all. Whereas the Miyuki Elastic Beading Cord is already more of a flat cord. So you can get it doubled through a Tila hole much more easily with the Miyuki Elastic Beading Cord than you can with the Stretch Magic. Like I said, I've done it with Stretch Magic. It's possible to do it, but honestly, you have to do a lot of tugging to get it to work, which is why I really like using the Miyuki for this. So let me kind of put this one off to the side. You can see that I have already pre-strung a length of beads here. So let me tell you how I got the length of cord that I'm using first. What I did is I took the cord off the spool and I wrapped my wrist 3.5 times. So there's, that's 2 times. There's 3, and then I usually just kind of go another half. And then because I'm me and I would always rather have too much cord than too little, if you are one of those people who wants to make sure that you don't use too much cord, then do this 3.5 times around your wrist. In my case, I'm going to just add a couple more inches before I cut that off. And then we can put that to the side. So that is how I determined the length of my cord, okay? Then you're going to need some hypo cement because we are going to go ahead and put a touch of glue on the knot that we're going to create. And then the last major piece is you're going to want a big eye needle. And a big eye needle is is 2 pieces of steel, and it's welded at the top and at the bottom. And that means that the entire center, if you can get your fingernail through the 2 pieces, the entire center opens up like that, okay? Well, what we're going to actually do is, and I've already done this to this one, so that's why I'm kind of holding this awkwardly, is I want to actually cut one of those ends off so that this is going to open up like a V. And so I have already taken my wire cutters, and all I did was I just held it really tightly, and I like to put my finger over the end or put this underneath the table when I'm cutting off that end, because it's metal and it's going to go flying, and you want to make sure it doesn't fly up into your face, into your eyes, or it could even, you know, just cause a scratch on your face or something. So I like to cut it under the table to make sure that I don't injure myself. And so now I've got this V shape, like so. And you're like, okay, so now what, Jill? Why would you do that? Well, it's because we are going to take, this is how we get started on all this. I'm going to take the 2 ends of that length of cord that I cut, and I'm going to tie just a simple overhand knot down at the end. This is a temporary knot that we're going to cut off later, so don't leave a big long tail because you're just going to cut that part off. Come on, go through there. There we go. So I just want to leave a little bit of a tail there. Go ahead and tighten it down nice so it doesn't come undone while you're working on it. That's really just because I don't like to have lots of the tails kind of getting in my way. You actually could do this without tying that knot. Just if that bothers you, don't do it. Then on this other end, where it is doubled over, you're going to take that V-shape needle now, and you're going to put it right on the apex of your thread. Whoops. There we go. So now it's doubled over like so, and then this is where you will start stringing your beads. And you can, even though this has the 2 wires are like this, just if you hold it with tension, they're going to sit together and you're not going to have a problem stringing beads on it. And then you're just going to periodically pull them down, and like so, and get your entire length strung. Every once in a while you want to stop and take a look at what you've strung to make sure that if you are doing an actual pattern as opposed to just picking up randomly, that you haven't made any mistakes in your pattern. In this case, I think I'm good. I do have one, actually I think it was this one maybe. Anyway, I do have at least one where I made a mistake in a pattern, but I'm just not going to worry about it because I think it's never going to be noticed. Now, how do you know if you've strung enough beads? Well, that's simple. You are just going to put this right around your wrist and see, kind of hold them in place a little bit and see how they meet up. Right there, that feels pretty good. I've got a little bit of looseness once I tie the knot on it, and yet it's not going to be too tight on me. So I'm feeling pretty good about that one. In this particular case, the way the sizing worked out with my pattern, you're going to notice that I started with 2 of the matte bronze, and here I am ending with 2 matte bronze. So I went ahead and put just an extra little quarter Tila on there just to create some kind of separation when I bring these 2 together, so I don't have 4 of the matte bronze together. But other than that, that's the only alteration that I'm going to make to the pattern, is just it's not going to, chances are it's not going to work out perfectly when you bring the 2 ends together, and you just have to be okay with that. All right, so now that I know that I've got the right number of beads for myself, I'm going to go ahead and cut this temporary knot off. So just snip it off with some scissors. And I'm kind of going to cinch these beads down to where the needle is. The needle is still holding a little bit of a loop of the thread there. Let me see if I So I do want a little bit of a loop there because I want to be able to take these two threads from this end and poke them through that little loop. So that's why I go ahead and leave the needle on for right now, because if I take the needle off, that loop can just get pulled through the beads until I put these ends through the loop, at which point that will secure it. So we're just going to get that opened up and poke those through. Like so. All right, so now both of those are through that loop. I can remove this needle. And now we're just going to cinch this all up. And yep, just a little tug, and I was able to close that loop up completely. You can't even see it there. And now we can tie the knot on this side of the Tilas. We're going to do these two sides with two separate strings. It's the easiest way to do it, and it will keep your bracelet from doing any twisting. If you crossed this thread over to the other side at that spot where you did the crossover, it would cause a little bit of a twist, and we don't want that. So we just do each hole of these Tila beads as a separate cord or thread. So in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of these cords and I'm going to loop it underneath so that I can tie the knot over the loop that they went through, okay? And what we're going to do is two square knots. So a square knot is where you take the cord in your right hand, pass it over the cord in your left hand, and then pass a cord under through the loop, and you tighten down. So that's your right over left part, and you can tighten that up. And then you want to do the reverse. So left cord over the right cord, and then through one of those cords through the loop and tighten down. Those two knots together make one square knot. It's important that you alternate which side you start with for it to be a super secure knot, because otherwise, if you do them both, say you do it both times, you do right over left, a good tug on it can still make it come out of that knot. So that's why you alternate the tension on the knot. So here we're going to do right over left again. We're starting a square knot. Bring down, give a nice tug, and then this time we're doing left over right. Bring it through the loop and tighten down. Nice and secure. So you can, at this point, you've got two options. You can either you can either glue the knot and then cut the cords off right there, or you can take and bury this cord in on either side through a line of the beads and then cut it off farther away. If you're going to bury it, the thing is you want it, when it stretches out, see how there's space in between? The buried threads tend to come out. So I really, in this particular bracelet, I don't really see a need to bury these. There is a need to do is to glue that knot. So what I'm going to do here is bring in a paper towel to protect my surface. And I'm going to use this GS Hypo Cement. One of the reasons I like to use this is because it has a very pinpoint applicator. I know that a lot of people will have trouble using Hypo Cement because there's a needle that goes down into the pinpoint applicator. So here's your pinpoint applicator, and then on the cap there's this little needle that goes down into that little tiny tube. And getting those two back together can be a bit of a trick when you have glue coming out of the top. I'm going to show you a little bit of a trick that will help you out getting that cap back on if you choose to use the GS Hypo Cement. If this particular glue bugs you, then don't use it. You can use You can use really kind of almost any glue. You might want to test it on the Miyuki Elastic thread to make sure that it's not going to eat through, but E6000 will work. I have a type, oh, it's not a super glue, but it's in a super glue type container, and it's the same type of glue as super glue, that would work well for this also. So experiment with your glues, figure out which one you like best. Like I said, I'm going to use this hypo cement. So I'm going to go ahead and be bold and take the little spot out. Because this is a pretty full tube of the glue, it's going to kind of start oozing out the top a little bit usually. So what I'm going to do with the knot is I kind of want to open this up and with the stretch, and so that I can get to the knot itself and then apply the glue right on the knot, like so. And I'm okay if I'm getting it a little bit on my fingers. I've got time to get that off my fingers. Okay, so that knot is pretty thoroughly coated. Just going to wipe it off my finger. Now you can see here where I've got kind of the blob of glue right there. That's going to cause me a problem with getting this tip back in. So I'm going to go ahead and wipe it off. And what I'm looking for is on the tip here, there's a little notch in the tip. And so if I rotate this so that that little notch in the tip is at the top, then I'm going to put my finger and rest this on my finger, and with the cap, I'm going to use my finger as a guide to get it into the tube. So that I'm not just doing it out here in outer space. It's really hard to find. But if you do it like that and use your finger, you're going to get a little bit of glue on your finger. Just wipe it off. I find it much easier to get that cap back in. So those are my tips for that glue. Now I'm going to let this glue kind of sit while we do the second round of, the second hole. So with our additional cord here on the second hole, and we're going to do the same thing with that cord with tying the knots and doing the glue. But I'm just going to let this glue dry a little bit before I snip those ends off right there. All right, so on this one, let me get these guys off because I don't need them, because all I'm doing is connecting second holes. I'm not adding any beads on this one. So at this point I've got four strands of that going through those beads, so it was a little tighter. But I'm doing it exactly the same way as the first one. So here I tied my little knot here at the end, and we're just going to grab all the second holes and pass through them one at a time. Well, multiple at a time. And in this case, that little knot will be super useful to kind of keep us from pulling it all the way through. You could also use a stopper bead right there and just use both cords through the stopper bead if you wanted. So we actually had to do a little cut because as I was going through the holes of all the second holes of all those Tila beads, I got almost all the way to the end, and I had accidentally skipped one of the quarter Tilas way at the beginning. So it was just kind of hanging out there, flapping, so I had to pull it all out and redo the whole thing. So you didn't miss much, just my boo-boo. But I thought at least I was nice and I told you about it, right? Okay, let's get back to the beads. The other thing that I wanted to point out is that I did end up having to put a stopper bead on this cord for the second hole because the little knot that I tied there at the end was so small that I just pulled it through the beads. So I put a decent sized stopper bead there to keep myself from pulling it through, the cord pulling through all the way. At this point, I feel like I've got a lot of cords kind of going on, and it can be a little confusing. So I'm actually going to go ahead, and now that that glue's been sitting for a little while, I'm going to go ahead and isolate the two cords that are where the knot is. you want to make sure that you're isolating those cords to cut them, because you don't want to accidentally cut the cord that you used on the second holes. So where I said that you should kind of leave these until you've done that second hole cord, I'm going to kind of go back on that, because it turns out that this ended up being a little fiddly having them hang out. It was kind of in the way. So now I have snipped those off, and that knot is completely finished over there. And then what I've got over here, I'm going to go ahead and take my stopper bead off these cords. And like I did on the other time, what we want to do is close this part down with the loop where the needle is. I want to get that close to the beads. This is the part now that I want long, the part where the two cords are just hanging out here. So I'm just going to tug on those two cords, and we're going to snug up that cord. You can see it sucking up into the beads. I left that needle on there so I don't accidentally suck it all the way through the beads, because I do want to have that loop, to go through with my two cords here. Okay, so now I still have the loop. I've got these two cords. And this is just identical to what we did before. So I'm going to pass those two cords through the loop. And at this point, since I'm not pulling, I'm just going to get this out of the way. My loop should not pull through until I actually tug on the cords. And we'll get them through there, like so. You can certainly do that one at a time if it's easier for you. Now I'm ready to get rid of that loop. So now I'm going to tug this all the way so that the loop will completely disappear visually. All right, like so. And then just like I did before, I want to bring one of the cords in between the two, underneath and in between, because I want to tie a knot over that loop. So here's where we're going to do our two square knots. So it is right over left and through, tighten down, left over right and through. It's one square knot. Right over left and tighten. And then one more, left over right and tighten. All right, now all that's left is we're going to put a little glue on there. We're going to snip those ends, and you can sometimes get this knot. Right now there's a little tiny bit of knot showing. You can sometimes get it to pull into the hole of one of the beads. Tilas have pretty small little holes, but if you finagle it, I'm working on this first one that we've already glued. And it's not wanting to go for me. You may have a little bit more luck with that than I did. Maybe I didn't tighten it down quite enough, but just so you know, you can give it a try to tuck it in there. But even if it doesn't tuck in there, look, you can barely see that knot. So to me, that's never going to bother me. And because I've already shown you how to do the glue on this, I'm not going to show you a second time. But at that point, you're ready to wear your bracelet. Like I said, with the GS Hypo Cement, you want to let it, ideally, you want it to sit for about 24 hours before you actually wear anything around. Glue just takes a long time to dry thoroughly all the way through, so it's a best case scenario to get 24 hours. If it's a little less than that, don't worry about it. If it's the next afternoon or whatever, you should be fine. But that is how to make the stretchy cord bracelets. And once you kind of get just those little bit of basics down, it's so easy to do, and you're going to find yourself making about 1 million of them. And I love it when you wear multiples in the same color family together and stack them on up your wrist. I hope this helps you make a stretchy Tila cord bracelet, and I can't wait to see what kind of designs you come up with all of your Tilas and half Tilas and quarter Tilas and all the colors. And I would love it if you would share photos of your work in my bead group on Facebook. It's called Jill Wiseman Designs Beaders. And we have a huge community of beaders out there working on all sorts of projects, and I love to see what you make. So please, and same thing, if you need help, that group is an incredible resource for you to find help for projects, in addition to just sharing what you've made. So come join us and we'll have a bunch of fun there. Happy beading!